Okay, dear Libra, you are next. So first we will draw 2 cards for Mercury, conjunct Venus retrograde in Scorpio this week. And oops. And then after that, I'll draw a card or 2 for the moon coming into its first quarter square today in Capricorn, as it is waxing toward our Taurus full moon coming up. Ooh, you got Judgment. Judgment, and this is my newest deck, the R Tarot, which is really gorgeous. And I don't know about this person, Sophia Duleep Singh. So I'm going to read about her. And this is the R Tarot by Sarah Shipman. I love it. It's great. Okay. All right. Okay, so the themes she puts for the cards are quite similar to, the typical themes, but the people she uses as reference bring absolutely new depth and layering to it, out of history, out of the archive, out of all the creativity, human creativity that's been, and so much of that has been subjugated and just out of balance. I always say, some people might get irritated when I say this, but I always say all male artists are overrated because simply due to the fact that female artists have been underrated. So there needs to be a balancing, so that everybody is able to give their true contribution. Okay, Judgment. Resurrection, awakening, soul purpose, declaration, divinity. So declaration, love that for Mercury. Okay. Princess Sophia Alexandra Duleep Singh was born during the Victorian era in the region of Suffolk. As her name suggests, she was the child of 2 distinct cultures that were in the midst of combining and clashing with one another. Years before her birth, Sophia's father, Maharaja Duleep Singh of the Sikh Empire, had abdicated his kingdom to the British. The latter part of the 19th century saw Britain's East India Company complete its systemic economic takeover of the Indian subcontinent. By the year of Sophia's birth, the British had dropped the facade that their efforts in India were simply a private corporate venture. The East India Company was dissolved, and the lands it controlled, such as the homeland of Sophia's family, were handed over to the British Crown. Queen Victoria brazenly styled herself Empress of India in 1876. Queen Victoria is someone in these cards as well. Maharaja Duleep Singh was kept in comfort and style by the Queen. Victoria was especially fond of his daughter Sophia, whom she took on as an adopted goddaughter. The Maharaja eventually grew disenchanted with his situation, realizing that he had been manipulated as a child to give up his kingdom. Wow. Sophia grew up as a proper English noblewoman, even being presented as a debutante at the royal court, but this served to estrange her from her father. This is reminding me of that book and also the Shirley Temple movie, A Little Princess, and also the book Secret Garden, I guess just the Englishness of it all. Anyway, but these hidden moments, these deep movements of history that can be hidden within these very private lives and even sort of disregarded or, just these plain lives that are unattributed, go unrecorded. Not that hers did, but just thinking about that. With the Queen's encouragement, Sophia attended balls and parties, adorning herself in the most fashionable clothing. In 1903, Sophia, along with her sister, made a secret trip to India. Queen Victoria had died, and her son Edward VII was to be proclaimed Emperor of India. She found that her popularity, Sophia, in English high society was meaningless in her ancestral land, and she was ignored by many. Sophia traveled to India again in 1907 to visit relatives, and she realized how much her family and their community had sacrificed by surrendering to the British. Sophia saw poverty and disenfranchisement. She saw people who had been denied the right to govern themselves. These experiences were life-changing for Sophia. She was made new by opening her eyes to the reality of systemic oppression. Upon returning to Britain, Sophia began a career in activism as an ardent public supporter of the women's right to vote. She used her resources to fund suffragist groups. She even refused to pay taxes on the principle that if women's voices were not being heard by the government, then why should they pay for it? Sophia was part of an activist group that in November 1910 went to the House of Commons to attempt to meet the Prime Minister. They were violently expelled from the property, and many women were injured. Sophia auctioned off several of her belongings to finance the movement's activities. Though the authorities kept a close eye on Sophia, they dared not arrest her, possibly fearing public outcry. Now it's reminding me of the jokiness with which Disney showed the suffragist mother in Mary Poppins. Although Sophia worked primarily for women's suffrage in Britain, she did not feel bound to any particular country, and she was proud of her Indian heritage. Sophia, though she had benefited from the trappings of aristocracy and royalty, was nonetheless supportive of an independent India. Ultimately, when she died, Sophia's body was cremated according to Sikh customs, and her ashes were spread in her father's homeland. Sophia Dilip Singh as judgment is a card of profound renewal. It indicates a change in viewpoint, so much so that one may feel like they have been awakened from a sleep state. Sophia's judgment demands that we evaluate ourselves and that we also grant absolution and forgiveness to ourselves and others for our inherent imperfections. Everyone has blind spots sometimes. The question is, what are yours? To what realities must you open your eyes? And I just love this part where she says, speaking about governing ourselves, anyone governing his or her or their itself, and yeah, just that kind of what is lost when there is power, when there are power struggles rather than a deep, profound sense of and templating in and ratification of equalities. Okay, this video is getting very long. The others I didn't read from any book, but I love how that fit in, and I'm really enjoying this new deck. Okay, so Mercury here. There's a speaking of deep things that has not, Mercury conjunct Venus retrograde in Scorpio. A speaking or some sort of communication from the depths. And look at this, the Four of Pentacles, which I've been noting lately as a resistance. That resistance, that human tendency to resist, and how that kind of friction can actually be what allows things to shift and new things to happen, to be created, to be recalibrated. Okay. So for you, to hold yourself in honor, to honor yourself, and in so doing, sometimes in honoring ourselves, it can create friction with others because they're used to us fitting into this one place, and then we're not gonna be bound. We'll no longer be bound by anyone's idea of us, even our old ideas of ourselves. But that very friction is part of that rebirthing process, that very difficulty. And just remember these gorgeous flowers of self-honoring, and take time to smell those roses, to enjoy, or to celebrate, to celebrate yourself even within the difficulty, to celebrate the fact that you are honoring yourself, and that might be what's actually causing the difficulty. And then at this moon, at this quarter moon, you have this ability to just be very clear, very firm, very direct, you know, and a firmness that is not violent, that is not harshing on anyone else, but it's just like very grounded in who you are, what you are, you know. And do take a look. Your video turned out quite long, Libra, so happy birthday to you. And but also take a look at that first video I did for Mercury and Venus this week. That's for the collective. I'll link to it in the box. Love to you.